Welcome to Athens City Council. This evening we will be meeting in council committees. The meeting will be called to order by the City Council President, who will then pass discussion over to a respective committee. The chair of the committee will introduce the discussion topics and provide an overview of the issues at hand. If needed, members of the administration will offer brief statements to provide further context. We will then welcome input from the community. Any citizens who wish to speak will be asked to state their name and address, both verbally and on the sign and sheet located at the podium. Individuals will be given one opportunity to share their thoughts, and the committee chair will have the authority to limit each speaker to 3 minutes. Once all citizens have had the opportunity to speak within the 15-minute time period allotted for total public participation on each topic, the public comment portion will be closed. Council committee members will then continue their deliberations. There may be additional questions directed to the administration during this time. When the discussion on the topic concludes, the chair will indicate whether legislation will be introduced at the next regular session of council and move on to the next item on the agenda or adjourn the committee if their work is complete. The next committee chair will then call their committee to order, proceeding in the same manner as before. Once all committees have adjourned, City Council will conclude for the evening.
Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, November 10th, 2025 at 7:02 p.m. And we have mostly committee meetings tonight, but we will have one special session at the end to introduce an ordinance. We are asking all council members to stay up at the dais at the beginning here tonight, even though it is the Finance and Personnel Committee to start things off, as we are going to have a presentation from the Economic Development Council. So we'd like to invite Molly Fitzgerald to the podium. But I will let everyone know that the Finance and Personnel Committee is chaired by Member Reisner, who is joined by members Wood, Clodfelter, and McCary. Would council members please stay until the second item on our agenda? Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you all so much for having me. Can you see?
We see the report to Athens City Council below us.
Great, great. As long as you guys can see it. All right, so thank you so much for having me. I come and speak to you all every year towards the end of the year, ahead of the city's renewal of their membership to the Athens County Economic Development Council. So I always start, here's our mission. I always start with this 2025 overview. I'm hoping you guys can see it all on there. So throughout 2025, we continue to focus a lot on our site development efforts, our downtown revitalization efforts, business retention and expansion projects, and a little bit of attraction actually this year. So I'll touch on each of these things on this slide in more detail as I go throughout the presentation, but a couple things to note. We did complete the 60,000 square foot spec building. We spent a lot of time on that this year out in the plains. Now I need to get someone in it. So I'll talk a bit more about that. Some exciting things. We moved our office into the Armory. So it feels exciting knowing that the EDC kind of played a part in a bit of that capital stack. It feels really good to be there. We're, I think, 2 weeks in. So far, so good. And then I'll get to more of the BRE stuff. But one thing I want to point out is that we successfully re-engaged the city of Nelsonville back to the EDC board, got them back. They had not been members for about 10 years, so that feels like a win as well. I always include this slide as well, the local economic development tools and programs that our office administers. So we, of course, admin all of the tax abatements and tax incentive programs and report out on those each year. So that includes TIF, enterprise zone agreements, CRAs, downtown redevelopment districts. We manage the city and the county's revolving loan funds. This year we have tried to strategically form partnerships with some regional CDFIs that will hopefully bolster our pipeline of companies interested in those revolving loan funds. That's always a struggle, getting folks to the table for that. And then we manage any Jobs Ohio grants or loans that come to companies in our county. We manage all of those as well. My 2025 funding secured slide. So I include this every year too. I'll be transparent. You're not going to see as many Jobs Ohio projects this year. Can we just see how that? We have a couple small business, Jobs Ohio Small Business Awards that we received in 2025. And I think a lot of this is just due to companies maybe postponing some larger investments due to volatility in the markets. Tariffs have led to a lot of uncertainty. So hopefully we see that kind of rebound in 2026 maybe. The Rural Industrial Park Loan Program was a big win. That's the last money that we needed in. That's takeout financing through ODOD, so we're working with Hocking Valley Bank on that. But that was the last money in we needed for the spec building. Some other smaller awards I include in here. Oh, that is not right. That's confusing. Enterprise zone agreements obviously are STUMAC, Quick Loads, and Lostra. The Ohio Southeast Special Purpose Grant is that Canaanville Archaeological Survey. So sorry about that. I just am noticing that now. I did highlight this $1.5 million from Congressman Balderson's community project funding. We were supposed to get that this year. That was allocated in 2025 for various reasons. This was for the Albany, some infrastructure projects out towards Albany along Carpenter Road. But we are confident, hopeful, that will be allocated in 2026. So when you're looking at that total funding down there, keep that in mind, that 1.5, we did not actually get that this year. And then I do want to make a note. I include on here the revenue capture from some tax incentive programs. The downtown redevelopment districts, we're anticipating that this number is actually going to be quite a bit higher. We had some different interpretations on how revenue is captured in the DRDs. So this only accounts for properties that I believe the auditor's office knew were having improvements made to the building that would lead to an increase in assessed property value rather than the total assessed property value of all the properties within that district. So hopefully that, we're still kind of going back and forth. I know the mayor is familiar with this, but going back and forth, and hopefully we can anticipate that number jumping up a bit. And feel free to jump in with questions, or we can hold them till the end. The brownfields remediation project, so we continue to spend a lot of time on brownfield assessment, brownfield remediation projects throughout the county. I'll touch on some of the city-specific projects since I give the same presentation to the county, so I include everything in here, but I'll try to focus on some city projects. So Russell's gas station, obviously, we were able to do the remediation of that site, that building on Columbus Road, remove some underground tanks, petroleum asbestos abatement, that kind of thing. And now it's ready for SOPEC to continue redeveloping the project, or the building, into their offices. They'll do the EV charging stations. I'm sure you're all familiar with that project that they have going on. Ambassador Laundry, we spent a lot of time, trying to get this through the 2025 round of projects, but we're still trying to sort out the ownership piece on that. So to be eligible for brownfields funding, the hands that contaminated the property or contributed to the contamination cannot be eligible for funding. So we first need to figure out transfer of that property to different hands, clean hands, so that we can proceed with that grant application to ODOD and get it assessed. However, in the meantime, while we're figuring that out, we did work with the city on the Ohio EPA targeted brownfields assessment to do some additional borings and sampling on the streets around Ambassador. The intention there is to try and identify where the box of contamination, how far it's spread, to give us a better idea of what the scope and the cost of the remediation will be. So grateful for the city for working with us on that. 2026 projects. So we're planning to resubmit Ambassador Laundry by December 5th, if we can, again, get the ownership piece figured out. We'll probably submit, the 317 board has some property, Ridge's property that OU is transferring to them. We'll submit that for assessment, and then some properties the land bank owns in Gloucester for assessment this year. Project spotlight. So typically I include as my project spotlight a larger Jobs Ohio revitalization grant or something like that. But again, to my point earlier, we really only saw smaller, small business grants, $50,000 small business grants, which are really exciting. And Hocking Hills Garment Center, this is in Buckdell, so I don't know if y'all are familiar, but it's a clothing manufacturer that is now in I love this picture. It's the old Catholic church in Buckdell that they're in now. So really cool. Redevelopment project, shows you what you can do with a space when you have vision. But they actually received a small business grant through Jobs Ohio last year, and so I'm including this year what the economic output of that award, that investment by Jobs Ohio has led to. So you'll see $2.3 million in sales and output and compensation of just about $750,000. And now the exciting thing that we're working on with Hocking Hills Garment Center and their partner Future Plans is trying to locate a dye facility that's closing in Columbus down here to Athens. Fingers crossed. We're having a hard time finding them a building that suits all their needs. We just were in the fire station earlier today. Hopefully we can work that out. But this is really exciting because it leads to this cluster development approach to economic development. So we can manufacture the clothes here, and instead of sending them away to get them dyed, we could do that here as well. And that's a really exciting project because it anticipates 50 jobs over the next 5 years. So again, hopefully we can figure that out. And they already have all the machinery and equipment from the facility in Columbus that's closing, so they need somewhere to store those ASAP, and I really don't think they want to move them twice. That's expensive. So this is the spec building, another thing that took up a lot of our time and energy this year, completing the 60,000 square foot spec building at the industrial park in the Plains. So we got the certificate of completion for that back in May. In July, we contracted with commercial broker JLL out of Columbus to market the building because we really need to secure an end user now. That's what keeps me up now at night. We have submitted it for 12 Jobs Ohio leads throughout the year. We've had 3 company visits, 2 of those existing companies here in Athens, 1 a business outside of Athens. And what we're waiting on now, this is in flux, I guess, with the government shutdown, but we need approval from EDA. We have money it doesn't have a floor slab right now, so we're just waiting approval to go to bid on the floor slab. And then saved the ACPA $480,000 through the mediation process on the extended condition costs. So that felt good as well. And if you know of anyone that needs 60,000 square feet or 30, the Port Authority Board will divide it by 2. Come get in contact with me. I include this slide every year, organizational partners. I won't read through all of them, but feel free to glance at it. If I'm missing someone, let me know. If there's someone or an entity that's not on here that you think we should be partnering with, let me know. Because we can't do anything without our partners. 2026 and beyond, I had a note here I wanted to say about this, about the brownfields funding. So yes, we need a secure tenant for the spec building. We're working with the Voinovich School. Our strategic plan has not been updated since 2020. So about every 5 years, we want to make sure we're updating that plan, getting new 5-year goals and objectives. So we're working with the Voinovich School on that. I think it's important, like I said earlier, that we partner with CDFIs and really try to find a way to get more folks and businesses to the RLFs. The Canaanville Sewer package plant project, that is being rebid. The first bids, cost was too low. No one was going to make a buck on it, so we're rebidding that. But that's really exciting because we see a lot of demand for, of course, you want the larger buildings, you want the 60,000 square foot buildings, but that 5 to 10,000 square foot range, we get a lot of interest and demand for buildings in that size as well. So that will allow us to meet that demand out in Canaanville along 5032 out there once the sewer. They're maxed out right now, so they really need this package plant. I'll continue to support housing initiatives. I do serve on the Affordable Housing Commission, as you all probably know. And then a note about the brownfield. So this will continue to be a big thing that we do. The budget passed with adequate funding for brownfields remediation and assessment, but it no longer has the requirement for a lead entity designated by the county commissioners. So, and that just means that this $1 million set aside, others could be vying for it, whereas the Port Authority previously kind of had ownership over those funds and spending of those funds. So it just makes it hard to not, you don't really know how much of that 1 million has been taken up by, a private entity, a developer, or something like that. So, I think we have shown that we do a good job of administering those funds and getting projects done and buildings cleaned up for redevelopment. So if you know of any properties that need assessment or demolition, please come to the Port Authority. We're happy to do that. And I think I have to do a shout out to my staff. This should be 1 Armory Street. I just learned our address. It's 1 Armory Street. But we're a small but mighty team. I can't do anything without Ricky and Selena. They're not here tonight, but they do a lot behind the scenes. So, and that's all I have. Questions? Yeah.
You've shared a lot of really great information. I applaud you for all your hard and excellent work. But I'm just curious, it's really great that you are still actively pursuing funds to clean up brownfield sites. I think that's really smart, but it's also really important for the environment. I'm just wondering if you happen to know how many brownfield sites we have in the county that are yet to be remediated?
There are probably brownfield sites that we don't know that they are brownfield sites.
Ones that have been identified? Is there a list that you're working your way down?
So we share a pipeline with the land bank, because the land bank, again, until this year, or until, I guess, 2026 technically, was the lead entity for demolition projects. So we share a pipeline with them that we'll add to, and a lot of it's like word of mouth, and that's kind of how we build it. And having the land bank just right, they have access to so many properties now through the tax foreclosure process that oftentimes need assessment or to be demolished. So that's really helped bolster our pipeline is working with the land bank. But gosh, I don't have a full list. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I'm sorry, it must be a big number.
I honestly don't even know where to estimate it, because a lot of them too, it is really interesting work. I will say this, like Lost Row, that was a project last year that we had the assessment and demolition funding for, and we found tanks that were like under the sidewalk that they, through the assessment process, still didn't even find until they were in and, knocking things down and tearing things up. So it's really an interesting process, but I think things were not as recorded as well in the early 1900s. So some things are there that you just don't even know until you start digging.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, to help clarify your role, one of the things that I'm not sure where the dividing line is between the kinds of projects you do and the small businesses, like the folks here who have small businesses. So, we'd like to do more to help the small businesses in Athens. But from what I understand, that's not really your role. So I'm trying to figure out to what extent can you, what's the dividing line? What can you work on and what
we've always
can you not?
used kind of this population-driven definition. So we don't work a lot with retail, with entertainment type businesses, restaurants, things like that. And really the reason for that historically has been if you're, for example, tax abatements, if you're trying to secure a tax abatement for a company, that's essentially taxpayer dollars being that they're benefiting from withholding no increase in the property tax in the case of tax abatements, but it's hard to offer that incentive when it's a company that might be paying living wage on one end. Do you know what I mean? So those programs, the grants and the tax incentives that we have access to often require a certain number of jobs created and retained, a certain amount of new payroll, and a certain, like a minimum capital investment. And those are just metrics and criteria that smaller businesses are not going to be able to meet. And I understand you, I hear you. I know the EDC board, Mayor serves on the EDC board, and we've talked about putting together, going after grant funds, maybe with partners that are more aligned with the smaller businesses, like the chamber, going after some kind of funding to create, I always call it like the CARES Act project that we did at the first round of COVID money. We did work with a bunch of partners, including the chamber and the SBDC and the city and the county, to put small grants up to $10,000 for businesses that were struggling in the early months of COVID. So we have talked about something like that, but it does come down to mission creep. I don't know how many, I don't want to take away from what the chamber does or, anything like that, but to answer your question, not to beat around the bush too much, it goes back to that those metrics that the programs that we have access to and that we provide through our office, often small businesses aren't going to be able to meet the payroll requirements, the job creation requirements.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I'm not trying to push you into something. As you
No,
said,
you're
mission
fine.
creep is important. It's an important factor. I just wanted to get some clarification,
Yeah.
for me and probably other people too, of course, you've got your mission and
Yeah.
you've got your funding sources based on what you've established. So, there's a lot of talk about what we can do for small businesses, and not sure where,
Yeah.
obviously the chamber does, but, we'd like to see
small
it.
local businesses. I know
Yeah,
that's
how
been a
to
challenge.
Pull
As Paul and I were just talking
those
about it.
resources together to help folks.
And we're completely, like I said, partnership is everything. So if that is something that council would like to see, we're more than happy to work with our partners and figure out, what our role should be in that or could be in that. Always happy to look at that.
Good to hear. Thank you.
That's a perfect segue. Molly, when you and I spoke on the phone either last month or the month before, we talked about the help that you can provide in advertising for businesses or for buildings that might be vacant. Well, last week,
Yeah.
this council passed a vacant building ordinance, and we are now putting together a list of those properties that are sitting there hoping to be filled. For those people, as you and I spoke, for those people who are in that situation, and we can count 6 or 7 out on East 8th Street,
Yeah.
if you could share with us, since this is recorded and lots of people watch this, in fact, last week it was over 800.
Ooh.
Well, yeah.
I'm glad I just knew about that now. At the beginning of the presentation.
Yeah, who wants to watch Monday Night Football when they can watch this? But anyway, with as many people that watch it, could you share with us the process or what a business that's currently
Yeah.
sitting vacant in the city would need to do?
In order to show that they have a
Yes,
marketing plan
exactly.
in place. Yes. So we do we keep a database of sites and properties. It's called Zoom Prospector, but we keep it, it's kind of more internal, so we know that if we have a company looking for, this many square feet and they need ceilings this high, we have that information, mostly for commercial industrial buildings. So that I would certainly welcome anyone that has a commercial or industrial building that is sitting vacant. Yeah, I think you could make the argument that we send them a property intake form, they fill out a lot of information. It's a bit overwhelming. We've streamlined our process, so I tell them this is exactly what I need and I'll handle the rest. Attainment zones and all that, they don't know. And then we list that on there, and it's really a way for us to keep inventory of properties that could be available for business needs. But certainly, that would be a good way for them to market the building and avoid penalties.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's not a penalty, just a registration fee.
Registration fees,
Yeah,
sorry,
exactly.
not a penalty. I didn't say it. 800 people watching. I didn't say that.
Here's the other one, a little more difficult, though.
Oh, great.
As you well know, we now have new U.S. House districts coming in the 2026 election, and we'll no longer have our I'll be nice, Representative Balderson in this district, which kind of concerned me with that $1.5 million. What's the political motivation to make sure that comes this way?
Yeah,
That said, where
question.
are you in the process, or have you started the process? Obviously, we're going to have an election. It's no sure thing that Mr. Taylor will be reelected. But our rep no longer is going to be in Zanesville or Pickerington if this gentleman is reelected. He lives in Amelia, which is on the outskirts of Cincinnati. What are we doing with him? Because it's never too early to start talking
No, you're
about
right.
how he can benefit us from a federal point
You're
of
right.
view.
I am a little worried about that. I mean, I'm sure we will do our outreach and have meetings with him, hopefully him or his office. But I will say Balderson has been very generous from an economic development standpoint in our region. The 1.5 that's pending, and I've been told it should be coming. So I don't know. I'll report back on that. But in addition to that, and this isn't answering your question, this is just talking about the good relationship we have with our current congressman. And I'm saying this in the hopes that I can assure you all that we will work hard to establish the same kind of good working relationship with the next. But his office was my first call with this government shutdown in our floor slab for the EDA, and they got right on it, and they reached out to folks who were working, who were answering emails, and assured me that day one that the government's open, we'll work on an extension and get that floor slab approved. So, so I guess that's all I can say is that I feel like we've done a good job of establishing good relationships with all of our elected officials, and I'll just continue to do that no matter what the curveballs are.
Sounds like you have your ear to the ground. That's good to hear.
Hi, thanks for your report. I am interested in your work with the strategic plan that you're updating.
Comprehensive
It's
strategic
running
plan, yeah.
seemingly on the same timeline as our comprehensive plan established in 2020 and due for updates now that it's
Yes.
been 5 years. I'm curious about what you can share about that process for updating that plan
Yes.
and any connections you might anticipate it having with our larger comprehensive plan.
Well, you all are going to be getting an email from the Voinovich School for a survey. So we, the Voinovich School is really taking the lead, but that's like our first step is they're drafting all of these surveys for, one is going to be local elected officials, one will be developers, realtors, business owners, industry leaders, and sending those out to really get we have a very subjective take, like I do this day in and day out, so it's important to hear from all these folks what they think our role should be, does it need to be expanded, do we need to address more small business needs, and what we're doing well. So that will be the first step. So again, you'll all be getting an email from the Voinovich School. Please fill out our survey. And then they're doing a SWOT analysis, they go through that whole process. And I do think our strategic plan, we've been calling it an update. I think our strategic plan has good bones, but a lot has changed in 5 years. I thought 2020 would have been a great year to do a strategic plan update, and kind of hindsight's 2020. But so there's a lot that has occurred in the last 5 years. A lot of transitions, I guess I should say. So it'll be interesting to see how much we need to pivot and where we need to lead our economic development efforts.
That was going to be my follow-up question, given how many things have happened since 2020 with the pandemic, shift in our the diversity of our economic reliance on Ohio University here and other factors. Are there big things that you expect to be different about these updates or the strategy moving forward compared to what you were thinking in 2020?
Yeah, I think there will be more of a focus on housing. Okay. So in the past, the Economic Development Council has not, we have said that's not our lane, and really mirrored what JAWS Ohio, right, our statewide economic development organization has done. And part of this is my opinion, which is why we have an outside group write the plan. But I just feel like we're in a position where it's really hard for me to do my job if I don't have adequate housing for employees we're looking to attract here. And also, really, the Port Authority does have in its toolbox a lot of tools that we build buildings. So, why can't we consider looking at more housing projects to issue bonds, and so they get the sales tax exemption, all things that we've done in the past but maybe could do more of. So I would expect to see more of that in there. The industry diversification piece will remain. We cannot be overly reliant on Ohio University or our city and county governments, our schools. The last 5 years ago, there was a big focus on, we thought agri-tech was going to really take off, and it has in some parts of the world, parts of the country, but we haven't seen a lot of that here. Data centers are going to come up. I have my thoughts and feelings on those as well. I think they can make sense for some communities if you really don't have a big tax base. I would argue that that's not the case here. So, but that'll probably come up, and what our approach and path forward with that is, and is that going to be a boom and bust, which we all know here in our part of the region, we have suffered from boom and bust industries. So I think there's some apprehension around that. But now I could just talk about this forever, so I'll stop with those 2-3 examples.
Thank you.
Administration?
Just briefly, to kind of follow up with a lot of what Molly has said, one of the slides you saw that she has the city's RLF, so that we do have a revolving loan fund, to where I have felt and still continue to feel strongly that among other entities that could come into the space, and this kind of follows up on Sylvie, Councilmember Spilness's comment, about the smaller businesses. The RLF can be deployed with any business. I am partial to them really shopping it to women or minority-owned businesses who want to use it, but it's a loan. It's a revolving loan. We can keep the interest rate as low as we possibly can. That too is challenging. You know, I would love for it to be zero interest. Can't do that because someone has to administer that. Some bank has to, and you know, no financial institution is going to say, sure, we'll go ahead and administer this to you, to whomever at zero. It has, help me out, Molly, it has over $100,000 in it.
Yeah, probably about 130, I'd say.
Once upon a time, it had much more, and it had been used for, if you recall, when Damon's Restaurant was here in the city of Athens on East State Street, and then it got turned to Abrio's. You know, the downside can be is if a business whom that loan went to folds for whatever reason, isn't able to sustain themselves, we fall pretty far back in line when it comes to recouping any revenue from that. And so there are challenges with it. I just share that with council for anyone who's watching tonight. You know, there is the city RLF that exists.
And I can briefly go over some of the terms of that RLF. So right now, we rewrote the policies last year as much as we can, right? They are CDBG funds. So the term right now is 5-year treasury plus 0.25%. And so I think the reason why it's hard to get that money out is because oftentimes you can go to a bank and get comparable rates, and it's easier. You get all your funding from them. This is gap financing. So you have to have a majority lender in the project, and then the RLF would come in and fill whatever the gap of the project is. So that can be just challenging to people. And like you said, it's a loan, right? It's not free money. But so those have been some of the challenges for getting that money out. So, but it's minimal job creation. It's one of the few programs we have that I think they can get $25,000 per new job created. So if you're a small business and you need to hire 2 new people, you get $50,000. You could get up to $50,000. That's how that works.
Also adding on to a lot of what Molly has mentioned to you, I hope council makes note of the amount of revenue that is sitting inside the downtown redevelopment districts. One in particular, 234 Washington Street, DRD, which is the Stumac building is in there, the distillery is in there, cider house is in there, there's other entities in that space, but the last I looked, which was probably 45 minutes ago, there's 19 properties within that DRD. A DRD cannot exceed 10 acres. It also has to have a identified historic structure in there. The historic structures can receive grants for renovations or for uplifting facelifts on it or whatever, as long as it stays historically correct and accurate. Loans can also be created for other businesses within the DRD. The reason I'm singling that particular thing that was on Molly's slide out is the way they work is that once you have a DRD established and ODOD and everybody else and their mother has said, yep, okay, you now qualify. And we're one of the first in the state to have gone through the entire process.
It's the date that the ordinance is enacted is when the clock starts.
The shot clock starts.
Yeah.
That has been active. The 234 Washington Street DRD has been active since May 5th of 2018. Every time there's a property reassessment of properties, the properties that are in that DRD, 70% of that increased valuation gets captured by the DRD, and that's where it builds up its revenue that can be used. In my opinion, there was a significant miscalculation of the funding that is to go into that DRD since it has been live for 7 years now. They can only run for 10 years, and after that 10-year period of time, the DRD ceases to exist, or you go through a reauthorization or reapplication process to continue it on. We have 2 others. One's called the Siemens DRD. It captures Siemens grocery store. And then the other is Depot.
Depot Street.
and the Depot Street. Those have only been live for the past 2 or 3
Depot's
years.
been live as long as 234 Washington. Siemens was 2021.
2021, yeah, because
Yeah.
we had some issues with that one.
Yeah. Again, the guinea pigs.
Yeah. So they're interesting tools to use, but we need to get to the bottom of why the DRDs that have been active since 2018 don't reflect the true increased valuations of those properties over that 7-year period of time. So Molly's comment about there could be more money in them, there really could be a lot more money in them than what it's being reflected.
So
Please.
thank you. So to add on to that, or to continue with that, a lot of those places were businesses with apartment housing upstairs, when we're talking about the ones by Cider House and whatnot. So is there possibly additional monies? Can you sort of pile on to say, okay, we're going to renovate to make these businesses again or whatever, and add an additional housing? I'm just asking, because I really have no idea, but it seems like
Yeah, I mean.
you look at, you try to find all your possibles.
Yeah.
So,
Short answer, yes. So the way that the grants and loans that the mayor was referring to work is that revenue would be captured, put into a pot of money, and then if the building owner wanted to do that, if they said, hey, we want to do additional units on the second story or third story of this building, they could come and request a grant for that. If it's a business owner, say it's like a rental company that wants to do that, they could request a loan to make those improvements. Yeah. So, and we don't have, there's, Mayor and I have like briefly discussed that program and the EDC administering that program once we know there's enough money in there to really do anything. But we haven't set specific criteria, eligibility for what that would look like yet. So it's right now flexible, open. Yeah.
maybe we can talk about that,
Maybe we
the
can talk
Affordable
about it.
Housing Commission.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions from council? Please.
Molly, you mentioned agricultural technology is something that I think said you thought was going to be bigger. And I think last year I might have asked you about marijuana and seeing any kind of economic benefit to its legalization recreationally in Ohio.
Yeah.
But I wonder if you can offer any comment
I
on
haven't seen any of the true benefit. Well, okay, I'm not saying we haven't seen any of that money. I'll leave it at that. But and no, by like agri-tech, they were thinking like these indoor grow houses and things like that that were going to take off, and we haven't seen that. But, yeah.
Treasurer Thomas, anything to? Members of the public. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, just one more comment. I just want to applaud you for highlighting that Hocking Hills Garment Center. I
So
think that is
cool.
such an exciting initiative,
gosh.
and I'm really glad you're in their corner.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful project, and they just want to keep doing more, which is
Yeah.
great.
They do.
So I highly recommend go out and see it.
Yeah.
This old church that's now people are in there on these big sewing machines. It's really, really cool. So.
Yeah, it is. It's wonderful.
All right, thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzgerald. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anyone from the audience like to comment on the presentation this evening? Okay, we will now move on to the rest of the Finance and Personnel Committee agenda. Again, the committee is chaired by Member Reisner, joined by Members Wood, Clodfelter, and McCary. It's all yours, Member Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let's see, we have some housekeeping chart here. I've been informed that we need to make a couple of amendments to the agenda. So let me read what those amendments will be, hopefully if we approve. One is $25,000 to Parking Garage Fund 730, Transaction Code 300, for elevator repair, credit card fees, and year-end electric costs, and increase in the total appropriations by said amount. That's the First Amendment. I think we should go in order. I don't want to group them together, so I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this amendment to the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion?
You have a look of a question on your face.
That's okay.
Yes, you are psychic. I remember when the parking garage used to sort of run a nonprofit profit. Now they're having trouble getting to the end of the year. Do you know what has changed?
In terms of this amendment, I don't know. I think that's a deeper question that probably should be discussed when we actually get to the topic. But right now, the discussion is whether or not to amend.
Which I seconded.
Okay, yes, okay. So I'll call for a vote of the committee. All those in favor of accepting the amendment to the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And then the second amendment that we're going to have to look at tonight reads as follows: an ordinance amending the 2025 appropriation ordinance 11524 and authorizing an interfund transfer. This is it would be in the amount of $750,000 to General Fund 101, Transaction Code 600, for transfer and increase in the total appropriations by said amount. So I will make a motion that we amend the agenda to include this this topic.
I can second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion about the amendment itself? Banish that man. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The agenda has been amended, and we will talk about these two items at the end. Moving on in order, we've done the Economic Development Council year-end presentation, which was very informative. I thought it was good to get some good news once in a while. So we'll move on to accepting amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission for General Property Tax Resolution. Give some background. We do this every year. City of Athens does not have a property tax, but we do take over functions that the townships would normally do in Athens Township and Canaan. And because we are actually doing their work, we are more or less reimbursed for our costs. I haven't seen the figure yet, but I assume the administration will get, or the treasurer would have it.
I actually don't have it tonight.
You don't?
Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Kathy and I talked about this afternoon, but I don't think she had it just yet either.
okay.
Actually, I think Debbie's handing it to you.
Thank you. Here it is. Athens Township General Fund. Amount approved by the Budget Commission inside 10 mil limitation, $1,168,300. Canaan Township, $55,026. So this will be an ordinance that will come forward on our next regular session, where we will discuss and hopefully approve and adopt this resolution. I believe it's a resolution, isn't it? Yeah, this resolution, as we have in the past, so that we can get reimbursed. That makes sense, Treasurer? Yeah, I mean, money is good. Okay, so toss it to the administration. Any comments on this?
I mean, I do. I was watching you, Councilman Reisner, when you looked at the 1 million plus from Athens Township, and then you had a different expression on your face when you mentioned the amount coming from Canaan Township. But just to remind everybody, the portion in which Athens exists in Canaan Township is very, very small. And so there's the vast majority of the city of Athens is within the Athens Township. So that's why you see the difference of 55,000 versus 1 point whatever it was $1 million. Just a little history lesson for everybody that we do sit in two townships.
That's true, but there's also some pretty large retail establishments on that little tiny sliver of Canaan.
A very few.
Yeah, they do pretty well. Anyway, toss it to the audience, or unless, Treasurer, do you have anything to say? Okay, well, you didn't have it. I got it now, so. Audience? No? Including council members who are sitting out there? All right, then we'll move on to repeal Title 15 taxes in lieu of Title 17 municipal income tax. I think someone else can explain this better than I can, although I have a vague idea. Sure. Treasurer?
So basically, this is just, Title 17 was the new tax code that went into effect about 5 or 6 years ago for Athens City. But when it went into effect, you couldn't just get rid of Title 15 because people have a certain amount of time to still file taxes under the old tax code. So we've reached that point. We're past it. So at this point, it's appropriate just to repeal 15 and leave 17 on the books. Pretty simple.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, any comment? Okay. You heard that. Well, let me get to the audience first. Audience, other, okay. Member Clotfelder.
Just curious, if there were anyone in town who had some issues with back taxes, would this affect their ability to pay those in any way?
Well, like say the deadline under the, if it would have been in a year that was under 15, they should have had that done by now. So.
And what years were those?
Couldn't tell you off the top of my head. That's what I asked, and it was about 5 or 6 years ago that 17 took effect, so it would have been, in the late teens.
Okay, so hopefully everybody's paid by then.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Any other comments? Council? Okay. Appropriation, $1,000 to Transportation Fund 214, Transaction Code 600, refund line. Administration?
This is just for us to put money in place for anyone who does request a refund now that Athens Public Transit has, they have the free program, so you can ride the bus for nothing.
So the way I understand it, before the free bus program started, there were people who bought a year pass ahead of time, not knowing that a free program was coming up. They shelled out the money, but they're not reaping the benefit of it, so they're wanting a refund.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense.
Alex, Mike 40 Townsend, that brings up an interesting point. Related to, but not exactly related to, should we consider those people who have bought and charged up smart cards for the parking garage? Because once we get the new parking garage, those cards with any money on them are virtually worthless.
It's interesting, Councilman Swank. I mean, that's a whole different topic.
Yeah, it is,
but
but just wondering if it's something we should consider.
Sure.
Okay. I don't know how much it is. It may be pennies, but who knows? Yeah. Chair.
Yeah. Thank you. Members of the committee? Next item, transfer from general fund to medical fund, and I believe this topic is going to come up at our special session. Who would care to talk about this? I'm no expert on this one. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I can't. We're really just have hit a point where unfortunately the medical expenses for the year have just exceeded what we thought they would be. We kind of fell into this in 2023. 24, we had a good year. 25, unfortunately, we're just down again. So the medical fund right now does have a negative balance, and we need to get that to a positive balance before we can really close the books for October. It's kind of bad practice to close up in October with a negative balance in that. So that's, that kind of alludes to your $750,000 appropriation that you're going to get to in a minute as well. That's, that's what that's going to be for.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Mayor?
I can add a little bit more. Council, we've spoken about this on a multitude of occasions where, number one, we're self-insured. Number two, we also have stop loss up to $110,000, but then once you exceed that, it becomes very expensive and puts a significant burden on the revenue that we do have within our plan. And we currently have 5 individuals that have already exceeded the 110,000 for health care. And then we have 7 other employees that are in excess of 50% of the way there at this point in time. So as the treasurer indicated, it's been a rough year when it comes to healthcare issues for our employees and or their spouses or children. So it happens. It happened, I believe, in 2019 to where we had kind of a rough year, and it happened when I was transitioning from being a council member to being the mayor, to where I think it was 2015-16 timeframe that we had kind of a difficult year. It's not atypical that we have this. It doesn't happen often. So it does kind of cycle up and down depending on the overall health of your workforce and or their family.
Members of the audience? No? Members of the committee? Member Clodfelder?
I wonder if the treasurer might be willing to talk a little bit. Since the beginning of the year, we on council have been asked to be really careful about the general fund and to try to keep a certain percentage of money kind of in reserve within it. What is transferring the huge number of $750,000 going to do to that percentage that we were asked to protect?
Correct. I mean, it's going to hurt it a little bit, but I mean, at the same time, these are bills we have to pay. You know, we don't get a choice. So, you know, we're going to have to make the hard decisions on moving that money. You know, I think that Director Stone had some ideas on how we can, you know, try to recoup a little bit of that out of some of the other funds like water and sewer, but Mayor?
Yes, I mean, the treasurer's spot on. We need to do this now because we are in the negative. But what we're doing is looking at those in which the funding could flow through enterprise funds or proprietary funding and go back and take the fair share from each of those protected funding sources that would be paying into this. And that would bring revenue. We wouldn't be whole, but it'll bring revenue from those protected funding sources back into feeding back into the general fund to bring us back up again. But you know, again, this is one of those unfortunate years where this is where we're at, and you know, we have bills to pay, and we need to get this done in an expedient manner.
Member Wood?
Yeah, you mentioned the stop loss fund. We just funded that a couple of sessions ago. Two-part question. You said it stops at 150. Is that the
110.
110? One, it seems low in today's environment. Can we increase that number? And two, does that affect our future premium as well?
Well, there are levers we can pull where we can change it. You know, if my memory serves me correctly, you know, you can do stop loss at 100,000. You can do stop loss at 110, 120. You can go up. Health care is not getting less expensive these days. It is, as we've talked about in council many, many times. You know, when you look at our 1s and 200s, you know, and 100s is payroll and benefits, you know, and it's healthcare is just getting more expensive across the board. And so we can look at that, but at this point in time, again, we can look at it. I'll just leave it there in terms of changing. That does change some of the numbers on our end for being self-insured. But, you know, again, just asking council to bring this forward so that we can get this bill paid and continue on. And then, therefore, we'll continue to explore other ways in which we can make this work out better.
Member Clodfelder?
I don't know if it's been possible to even make an educated guess at this point, but I'm just wondering if you've had a chance to speculate on if you're able to, I think what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, is to pull the money out of the proprietary accounts for the employees of those accounts?
Yes.
How much that might lower that $750,000 number?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, as the treasurer just said, he doesn't know either. We need to dive deep into that and look to see how much that's going to offset some of this. But it will offset some. But it takes time to go through and do all that and to do the calculations based upon each FTE, full-time equivalent within the system.
Yeah, we just have to know how many people are in each department.
Yeah.
You know, and again, the thing you have to remember is like each employee has a specific cost that goes into the medical fund every year. So just call it a round number. If it was $20,000 a year that each employee puts in, what we're saying is maybe if you could go back in time with a crystal ball on journey on, you might have wanted to say, well, maybe it was actually 22,000. So what the mayor said is you would go through each of those departments and say, well, we need now $2,000 more for each person. We're going to try and pull that and put it back into the general fund. If that makes sense to you. Along with Member Wood's comment, if you wanted to increase, say we want to increase the coverage, we want to make sure we insure everybody up to 140,000, right? Then that just means that number per employee is going to go up. Because again, there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? The insurance is going to cost still. So you still have to pull in more money, per employee to make that work. So those are the factors that you're looking at when you do these things. Just like your own personal insurance, you want more coverage, you're going to pay a little bit more for it. So.
Keep discussing.
I just can't not ask, that is so much money. How much is that going to hurt our ability to fulfill commitments we've already made for 2025?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. Gonna have to make it work. That's just what it boils down to. But I couldn't tell you off the top of my head of that.
Do you know at this point what percentage of money in the general fund is protected?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I didn't. I don't know off the top of my head right now. Yeah, if the auditor was here, she would probably have that number, but I don't know the percentage. She keeps pretty close track of that.
Okay. If it'd be possible to email that
Sure.
to us, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll let them know.
Thank you.
Member Wood?
I understand we're in kind of a unique pool of insurance as it is anyway. Is there any ability to negotiate with claims adjusters, have, as one of those parties try and bring those numbers down? Because the numbers are, as you said, going up, but frequently can also be bartered down.
No, great question. We do. We have a third-party administrator. Again, we're self-insured, and currently, our premiums are just incredibly low and kind of out of sync with others out there. So there's a multitude of things that we're looking at right now, which I'm really not at liberty to disclose yet, because we are still kind of looking through everything. You can negotiate with your TPA, as we have, and we often do. And so we're close to exhausting every lever and leverage point that we have as we go through this process. But I think that we're going to have to see, looking into 2026, some significant changes in our healthcare benefits and what we all pay into that system and premiums, so on and so forth. So we're working on it. Trust me. Everything from, again, healthcare to our the prescription system, and negotiating those. And, we were quite successful back in 2017, I believe, when I became mayor in 2016. One of the first things I did is I wanted to hear from other TPAs that we were under one system, and I wanted to hear if there was other third-party administrators out there that could perform better for the city of Athens, and we did find our current TPA that has been working really well with the city and closely and very responsive when we have questions and want to look at other options. So we have, again, we truly have some work ahead of us with finding a better path moving forward. Because, again, I'm going to say this to everybody, 'cause hopefully you all recognize it, the cost of healthcare is continuing to escalate at a crazy rate, in my opinion. I mean, it's just, everything is zooming up.
Other comments from the committee? Okay, we'll move on to the next item for appropriations. $25,000 to Parking Garage Fund 730 for elevator repair, credit card fees, and year-end electric costs, increasing the total appropriation by said amount. So, administration, any comments on this?
No.
Is the elevator working?
I haven't been briefed on the elevator today, so I have.
That's reassuring. Okay. Audience, any elevator questions? Okay. Members of the committee?
Just say we frequently have elevator discussions.
No, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Needed a pun right now. Anything else? I want to apologize right now. I missed an item that needed to be on the agenda, so I'm going to have to ask for another vote to amend the agenda so we can discuss this. So the item is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to redesignate Hocking Athens Perry Community Action HAPCAP to administer the Athens Public Transit Bus System. So I'd like to make a motion that we amend the agenda to include this item.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very well. We will discuss it. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to redesignate Hocking Athens Perry Community Action HAPCAP to administer the Athens Public Transit Bus System from January 1, 2026 to December 31st, 2028. Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah. You're in favor of it?
Yes.
Audience first. Anybody out there? Yeah, please. Give us your name and address.
I'm Sylvia Spielness. I live at 87 University Estates Boulevard in Athens. And so I've been, as transportation chair, been spending some time with Ben Ziff. You all remember Ben Ziff. Mm-hmm. So on council. And I think he's doing a great job with, and they're doing a lot of new, more informational signs and some shelters and benches and all kinds of stuff. So I think they're doing a lot of good stuff, and I'm really happy about it. Plus, they got the passes free for everybody for the public bus system this year. So remember that. That's a great bonus for everyone. So I am very much happy with what's happening. Though we need Saturdays and Sundays, but you know, it can always get better, but I think it's going in the right direction, so it's great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Members of the committee? Member Wood?
Similar to the elevators, I also find Ben Ziff uplifting. and
Yeah.
It's good to talk about HAPCAP. They're a real pick-me-up.
Well, you didn't get left behind. So anyway, yeah, I think this I'm really, really in favor of HAPCAP. And I was rather shocked. I was talking to one of my neighbors up on Carroll who had no idea that there was free bus transportation. None. And she goes, well, how long has it been going on? I said, well, January. I mean, how can you not know? Mayor.
This has nothing to do with the fareless rides. But this has to do with something that Councilmember Spielness just said a moment ago. and I'm sharing with council and the viewing audience and those of you who are here that, I often am invited to come and speak and listen to Student Senate and Graduate Student Senate. And so I'm going to just share the concerns from Graduate Student Senate, and that is that we all recognize that we have a large number of international students who come here to attend Ohio University, by and large, for graduate programs. And there's a real challenge for them in terms of being able to get from point A to point B, in particular to get groceries or to get whatever. We have very, very few Uber drivers in the city of Athens. We have very, very few cabs. And to have, I would love to see Athens Public Transit bring back Saturday service, and to some degree they're working on that, and they have, but to see Sunday service, because a lot of our graduate students who are in the labs until 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and the bus is no longer running on weekdays, it's really unfortunate. And they can't get a driver's license if you're on a student visa. So I'm just sharing with council the things that I've heard from Graduate Student Senate and Student Senate when it comes to the challenges that our international population who are here getting their education are experiencing. And I would love to see Saturday service. I would love to see full Sunday service. I would also love to see the hours of the transit maybe on a shorter, a longer cycle. But it would be wonderful to see that service run until 11 p to where they could, make it to Kroger and get things that they may need. So just wanted that on the record, because I have spoken to a number of international graduate students, and that's one of their chief concerns, that and affordable housing.
Thank you. Any other comments? Well, I think by my reckoning that covers everything from Finance and Personnel Committee.
I think you got it. Thank you, Member Eisner. We'll move on to the Planning and Development Committee, chaired by Member Swank, joined by Members Thomas, Spielness, and Wood.
All righty, on the agenda tonight for planning and development, we have two broad categories. The first one is a single issue, and the second one has three parts to it. But the first issue before council tonight is to discuss the conditionally permitted use to permit temporary housing in R3 and B3 zones. Council received the memorandum recommendation from the Planning Commission on August the 5th that started the process on that, and we've had a couple of committee meetings and a hearing on this. So at this point, I would turn it over to the administration for any comments before we go to the public and then to members of the committee.
I really have no comment on this. This has been discussed in committee in the past. And
Okay, thank you, sir. Members of the community. You come forward, state your name and address.
I'm Rob Delich. I live at 124 Morris Avenue here in the city of Athens. And I just want to encourage council to move this ordinance forward for a vote. So bring it up next week, make it happen so it can be voted on this year. I think there's been a lot of time wasted, and I want to make sure that it gets through this year and we don't waste any more time. Thank you very much.
Okay, anyone else from the community? Your name and address, please.
Hi, Ken Lankus, 34 West Washington. I just want to reiterate earlier comments about this, just the way the language is written. There's more than enough series of checks and balances. And I think it is also, I want to agree with Mr. Delich, I think it's very important that we keep this on our radar, and I highly encourage you to pass it on to the full council, just in case of, as Councilmember Swank has noted multiple times, due to the law director's opinion on this and another ordinance. I think as long as we keep, this in the spotlight as well, that could preclude the city from any potential legal action in the future, as far as like the spot zoning issues go. So I think it's very important to keep this in our focus and get it done as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the community?
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to read straight from this so I stay on topic and on point.
Can you give us your name and address, please?
Sorry. Christy Thomas, 28 Avon Place. I know there's been a lot of discussion. We've been watching or been here on both proposed ordinances. This one is a little bit different from my point of view anyway. I would first like to state that I am on the FINA board, speaking for myself and fellow board members Dan Smith and Mallory Valentour. However, I am not speaking for the entirety of our neighborhood. Everyone has their own opinions on city proposed ordinances. I want to begin by expressing my full support for the city's efforts to address homelessness and provide shelter for those in need. I am not opposed in any way to helping our unhoused residents find stability, safety, and access to services. I do have a few concerns with the language of the proposed ordinance. The amendment allowing temporary housing shelters is quite broad. The term temporary is not clearly explained. There is no specific duration limit, maximum renewal period, or requirement for removal once the use is no longer necessary. Without these details, temporary uses could unintentionally become indefinite. Additionally, the ordinance does not specify how many shelters may be allowed per property, the minimum distance required between sites, or a maximum number permitted citywide. The ordinance requires that shelters be under the care of a licensed local health or welfare agency. It is unclear whether the agency must provide on-site daily supervision or just administrative oversight. Without a consistent standard, levels of care, safety, and accountability could vary widely among sites. It also does not define what qualifies as a licensed local health or welfare agency. It is unclear whether this requires a social work license, public health oversight, nonprofit certification, or some other form of professional licensure. Without a clear standard, accountability and consistency could vary widely. It is also not entirely clear who would be eligible to apply for such a use. While each application must be approved by the Service Safety Director and the Board of Zoning Appeals, the ordinance does not require that the applicant be the licensed agency. In practice, this could allow private landowners, organizations, or developers to partner with a qualifying agency and apply to place shelters on their property, turning into what is intended to be a humanitarian effort into financial or commercial gain. The proposed ordinance regarding the pilot project involving 3 Conestoga huts operated by the Gathering Place would provide an opportunity to evaluate outcomes. Observing the pilot would provide valuable data on operation, sanitation, supervision, and impact. We also have the Sunset Shelter project coming next year. However, for emergent inclement weather, we need to plan ahead with emergency shelter locations, just as was done last year at the fire station, and I think the community center was also used as a warming station as well. As resources may change every year, it is important to review yearly prior to inclement weather months.
Please continue.
Additionally, if not already done, can the city collaborate with the county commissioners and county-level service agencies to identify locations that can better accommodate temporary housing in a way that meets both the needs of the unhoused and planning objectives? Collaborating with individuals that are licensed and aware of the need to better coordinate health, social, and housing services across jurisdictions and working together could help ensure that any shelter site is properly supported and set up for success for our community members. A cooperative approach between the city and county could also reduce redundancy, share resources, and improve outcomes for residents in need. I also, if not already researched, urge the city to review what other rural and small communities are doing, especially those with similar size and resources to identify practices that have worked and understand where the challenges remain, examining the causes of homelessness in our area, such as possibilities of job loss, housing affordability, which we always talk about, mental health, and transportation access, will help us work in prevention and slow the trend rather than only reacting after people become homeless. Learning from other communities' pilot programs, prevention funds, or coordinated service models could help us design an approach tailored to our city's uniqueness, resources, neighborhoods, and businesses. There are many perspectives to consider on this sensitive topic, and I trust that City Council will carefully weigh all viewpoints and make a well-informed decision that protects neighborhood integrity, supports local businesses, and provides effective, supportive, and compassionate assistance to those who need housing and services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the community, please, or members of council? They're in the audience. Yes, Mr. McCary.
Thank you, Micah McCary, 3 Windsor Place. I was just wanting to share my opinion that I believe it might be helpful for the topic of implications for how this moves forward or doesn't move forward to be clarified for the public with regard to implications for tabling and what that might mean for possibility of this being explored in the future versus going to a full vote and being turned down, particularly with regard to the points that have been raised in relation to the law director's legal opinion.
So, from a procedural standpoint, this cannot be tabled until it at least comes to first reading. And the earliest it would come to first reading would be next Monday, the 27th, the 17th. At that point in time, it could be read for the first time, could be amended, a motion could be made to suspend the rules, or it could be tabled. Could then move on to the second reading, the first Monday in December, with all of those same options, and it could then move on to the third reading in December also. I'll have to defer to the clerk on this as to whether or not, and we've not gotten clarity from the law director on this yet, whether or not this is a recommendation of the Planning Commission. Council needs to act on it at all, and if they do or don't, do they have to do it this year?
They don't have to do it this year.
Okay, so this could, to your question, this could extend into next year. Now, once we start, it would be my understanding, Clerk Walker, once we would start the first reading process, though.
It has to go back through a public hearing.
Okay, yeah, that would. So if we don't start, so if we don't start the first reading, we can have additional conversation and extend it to next year without any problem. Once we start that first reading, then it's either going to have to finish it through, or if it were to get tabled and not brought off the table by the end of the year, it would die for this session of council. Little Robert's Rules of Order this evening. Anyone else in the audience, please, tonight? Okay, members of the committee. Member Spelness.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so generally when I do these things, I really try to listen to the community, read the stuff, look at other communities, whatever it is that makes sense. And I feel pretty confident in what I have to say and what I want to vote on. This one has not been easy for me. So I think I've been very clear that I am very supportive of the huts at the Gathering Place. Really well supervised, lots of security consideration. They've gone well above and beyond what a organization of their type for this kind of thing are doing or plan to do. This situation, however, has gotten complicated. I've heard from people who I really well respect saying it's just not a good idea right now. Experts, not to be named. And then I've heard from Ginger. She's made herself very public at the Gathering Place, and I just got this just before our meeting. And she said she does support it because of the variety of, as someone mentioned, safeguards in there. They're somewhat vague, but I totally trust that the BZA and folks could make good decisions, and our service safety director. She also goes on to say that she's concerned that if this ordinance is not approved, we would never have the option of working with the city and business owners to find other approved locations that made everyone feel comfortable and heard. So I think she is confident that this will go well this year, but it would be helpful for her to know that maybe in the future there might be other locations if it goes well. Taking all that into consideration, honestly, I really feel that this would be a good time to put it aside for the time being and bring it up once we've seen how well this goes, particularly because people are really, I would say, overly concerned about what the outcomes might be. So my preference, honestly, is to say, I think it's a good idea in the future, but let's put it aside for now and then take it up when we've seen a little bit more about how our need is and what options there are, and looked at potential possible sites. And then, because nobody is coming forward and saying, oh yeah, I want this. Nobody has done that. I don't think they will, to be honest. So anyway, that's where I'm going with this.
Thank you. Other members yes, Member Thomas?
Yeah, I would say when we first started this discussion, that was a little bit where I was. As we moved forward and we talked about it more and we put more safeguards in it, we talked through the BZA and the many, many layers and rules that they have. Much tighter, many more rules, many more guardrails in there. Honestly, the more threats to sue that I think are completely unfounded and they would not have standing, in my opinion, makes more sense to have this passed. We don't have to approve anybody in the next year. There's nothing that says that the Director Stone is going to say anybody that applies. He could say, I want to wait a year, but I want to have this to protect the city. Prior to those threats, I probably would have been a little more like, let's wait 6 months. But, they decided to go that route, so I guess that's the route we go. The idea that this is just, not well vetted or not planned, there is a timeline. You can't every year it's going to get rechecked. It's going to go through the BZA. It's going to have to get reevaluated. It's not like it starts and it just never ends. The amendment that's proposed to add the licensed local health welfare agency has to be under the supervision and care. That alone is another rule that it has to have. There was a request from a citizen to add serving Athens County to the end of that, which I would be fine with adding to and adding that discussion. Adding the clarification that no fee shall be charged could be added in there pretty simply. If we're amending, just do it all at once. But it's a lot of risk, and the whole, we're not going to know, so let's have it happen and see what happens. We're never going to know till it happens. We could kick this can down the road for a decade, and we're not going to ever get anywhere. The things that cause homelessness, the root causes, are so much more entrenched and deeper than this is ever going to be able to solve. We can talk about it. It can start a discussion. But there's a lot of recommendations that the city could be running this or doing that. And the real basis is the city is not built to be a social welfare agency. We don't have a social welfare agency arm, and legally, that is at the county level. We are not legally allowed to be a social welfare agency. That is what Job and Family Services at the county level does, and that's how ORC dictates that power. We can assist in things like the emergency cold shelter in the winter, and that can continue to happen, but those are short term. But I don't think protecting the city, and I don't think keeping this as a possibility is a bad idea. And as is stated when we were talking about whether or not we should change the shade tree, we can always come back and adjust ordinances and code in the future. But I 100% would move forward for next week. It's been since June, and it's been long enough. And I think the democratic process should be occurring.
Member Wood, anything to add to that? Or
Yeah.
don't have to, I'm just giving you the opportunity.
Thanks. I do want to clarify, and Christy brought up a couple of questions that I think we did answer, but I do want to reiterate because the last version that I have of the thing is from the October 27th, so we've made some changes. But I did want to clarify, we do have the definition of temporary is 1 year, right? We do have a max of 3 again, right? Is that correct? Thank you. But it does have to be reapproved by every year, right? Like that is included still.
Reviewed every year, yes, sir.
It says that twice, yeah. Temporary housing must be reapproved, but yeah. Okay. Just wanted to validate that because I think that's a good thing to flag.
Anything else?
Can I have one more?
Yeah.
I just forgot.
Yeah, sure.
My list went out of order. Also, the concerns that we heard about the gathering place being spot zoning, this prevents that from being spot zoning. So this just makes theirs completely legal and conforming. Just as another point. That's it.
Well, I'm going to deal with your interpretation of the law first and then share with everyone something I received on Saturday. This still could be, in my opinion, considered spot zoning because the conditions for approval are different. This is a conditionally approved, this is proposed to be a conditionally approved site, where the other is something council is approving. So that in itself raises a potential legal issue. But that's not the issue here. Member Wood, you asked a very, very profound question back on the 22nd of September. And I appreciate the fact that you inquired as to why are we doing this? And again, we are talking just about R3B3 today. We are not talking about the gathering place. And the answer that was given was this was, quote, to provide various options for this body to consider when it comes to providing shelter for those who are unhoused. But ultimately, it is council's decision. During that same meeting, one of our fellow council members said, this citywide proposal is more of a longer-term, more ambitious kind of concept, and I'd like to see us consider it very carefully as we proceed. And I don't see the same kind of urgency of getting this one through quickly. So I was out of town Saturday, and when I returned Saturday evening, I had an email that took a totally different approach to this than anything we've talked about so far. And it's short, and I'm going to share it with you. Regarding the proposed ordinance for changing the zoning to accommodate homeless shelters, business and apartments are what line the major arteries of our city. Is this really where we want to build basic structures and house the homeless? We have enough just plain businesses that are unsightly without adding shelters. How much money we have spent on the arteries to try to make the city more inviting and appear less run down and poverty-stricken. But here's the part that really grabbed me. Zoning is not the correct tool for dealing with homeless housing. Homelessness is a problem that cities deal with, not residents and businesses. We do need to take care of the fundamental needs of the homeless people, but not in lots zoned for other purposes spread all around town. The city should identify specific properties that are suitable for the homeless, where their basic needs can be met and the city can provide adequate oversight and assistance, and yes, if needed, policing. That could be either city-owned property or property they lease from private owners. At that point, a variance should be negotiated, an existing process that works well for the type of change and involves the affected property owners fairly. The proposed ordinance would make such usage possible. The proposed ordinance would make such usage possible with just a permit by the owner without involvement of the surrounding properties. Our particular neighborhood has many walkers not only within the neighborhood, but also going to the stores and community center. This should be taken into account is where we house homeless people. Homelessness isn't something you deal with through the zoning process. It takes specific programs which are well thought out and staffed with trained people that know what they are doing and requires good planning and proper locations. Let me say that again. Homelessness isn't something you deal with through the zoning process. It takes specific programs which are well thought out and staffed with trained people that know what they are doing and requires good planning and proper locations. Mr. Lankus, you have visited us every night, and you have said exactly that in terms of the gathering place. It is a specific program of well-trained people. What this email from Mr. Smith, Dan Smith on Strathmore, basically says is zoning's not the way to do this on a large-scale basis, but through specific requests from specific institutions or organizations, such as the gathering place, to be handled on a one-off basis by this committee. And for that reason, and I had never thought of this until I read this when I came home from Cincinnati Saturday night, and for that reason, I think Member Spelness is right on. We need to take a look at this on a larger basis, much like the gathering place came to the city, came to the Planning Commission and asked for a specific situation in a specific spot with safeguards in place. And therefore, I would, like Member Spelness, prefer to take a longer and closer look at this, and also to review how well the Gathering Place project works, which I hope works well, and how quickly the Sunset Motel can get open to accommodate more than just a handful of people, although every person we can help is a person we need to help.
I agree with you, sir, and I think...
Yeah. Oh, didn't mean to cut you off, but we're just trying to follow our procedures here. Any other comments by the members of the committee? Yes, Member Thomas.
So I would push back on much of that. I would say that, the licensed local health and welfare agency is in fact a structured organization that the city would have vetted, determined if they have the licensed people that are able to do the work, and do the check-ins and everything that we've talked about. I would also say that these are things to be mission-centric to the people doing them. That's not just we're not letting gas stations do it. We're not letting just anything random. It would be specific that I would imagine, be in line with the mission of the entity coming and asking. So that is all in this existing ordinance. Again, the gathering place can't do what it's asking if this isn't in place. It's still a conditional use because there's a little bit of difference in the structure of it, but all the concerns were at first that this was spot zoning and that was very dangerous. And what will we do if we spot zone? A, spot zoning is not illegal. B, the legal opinion of the law director is on the risk to the city, not the merit of the ask. So I again would just say that it's just more ways to push it down the line and to keep NIMBY actions happening. I mean, there's a lot of checks here. There's a lot of bounces here. I don't know if everybody sits and watches the BZA meetings. I do. They are not short. There are a lot of questions. There is a public input. There's a lot of back and forth. There's everyone gets to come and have an opinion. So it's not this easy process. This is really well structured, and I feel like we know Director Stone well enough that he's not just a let whatever happens happen. He's going to actually have a lot of questions, and he's on the Planning Commission, so he was fine with, these things coming forward. And I think maybe it would have been a little bit easier to push off a little bit. But the people, they were so dead against the gathering place happening, insisted that they could sue if it happens, so I still want this to go forward.
Okay, other members of the committee? So at this point, a couple of things. I don't hear 3 votes on this committee to move it forward. Secondly, going back to your points about changing this, I don't hear 6 votes to amend it. And without amending it, all these safeguards disappear. So at this point in time, Mr. President.
Whoa.
Whoa.
You can't make that determination.
I can make that determination.
No, you
as much.
cannot. The whole member, all of council is not up here.
Let's let Mr. Swank finish, and then, do you have a question?
At this point in time, Mr. President, I don't hear a consensus of this committee to bring this forward, so it will not be on the agenda next Monday.
I appreciate your input, Member Swank, but I believe it is, our council rules do not isolate committee chairs as the only members of council who can bring forward items for the agenda. So I don't believe you have that power in our council rules to decide this evening that this will not be coming forward.
Should we take a look at the rules now to see which rule that is?
I pulled them up before and it's not spelled out either way.
President Crowe. Sam,
I'm sorry?
when I asked in relation to the tree commission issue, I thought we were under the impression that there wasn't any voting about it, period, just kind of move forward. At least that's what it came up when we were talking about the tree commission, was that it would simply proceed.
That issue has been withdrawn from consideration for the time being.
It has. But when we talked about it at that time, it was said that, I think you said, that, it wasn't a voting issue, it would just move forward. At least that was my impression on that tape.
The closest thing to that would be in Rule 17, B. Requests for council action by non-council members must be accompanied by a written explanation at the time the request is submitted to council for consideration. All requests for council action by non-council members shall be assigned to a council committee prior to council action. That's the closest thing I can find to a...
Can I ask our clerk, is there a precedent here? I mean, I don't recall we've been in this situation before.
Nor do I.
Oh, great. That helps.
All I can reference is that in the past, when we've had a committee meeting, and I think we had one tonight, I believe Member Reisner said that this would be on the agenda for the next meeting. And we've had that. I know Mr. McCary did that a couple meetings ago, that says City Safety Services, something would be on the agenda for the next meeting. That's all I remember.
Those statements certainly occur, although they're not done for every ordinance or every issue in front of a committee.
So perhaps we should consult the law director?
Yes, I believe we should.
Why don't we leave it at that for right now and consult the law director as to what the procedural and legal requirements are for moving a item from committee to first reading.
She will be here shortly.
Oh, she is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She'll be here, yeah, but I mean, in order to do that, we need to send it forward, though.
There is no vote, as we know, in committee to
Yeah,
send
there's no-
something forward.
And
So there's nothing happens here officially. Member Swank may have an idea of what the committee feels, but there is no vote to officially declare that this will go forward to the full council agenda.
Right. And as it doesn't say either way in the rules, then it doesn't say that the chair can keep things back or not, and it doesn't say that obviously doesn't say that there should be a vote, so.
It also doesn't say that the chair has to advance it either. It's ambiguous.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that I would defer to the President of Council that we inquire of the law director as to possible procedural moves from this point forward.
I agree.
Thank you. And that concludes that part of planning and development. Okay, second part, exciting stuff. Traffic, general regulations. What this is all about, believe it or not, we're going to discuss all this, but we're not going to just go page by page. What this is all about is bringing our city code in alignment with any Ohio revised changes that have been made since the last time we updated this. So the first one deals with changing penalties for underage consumption of intoxicating liquors. And basically what it does is whoever violates section 9.06.08E is guilty of a misdemeanor of the third degree as defined in section 2929.21 of the Ohio Revised Code. Up until this point, if you violated that section, it was a first degree misdemeanor, which was punishable by up to 180 days in jail. By reducing it to a third degree, no more than 60 days in jail. And again, this is to bring Ohio or Athens City Code in alignment with the Ohio Revised Code. Mr. Mayor.
This is
Routine. Yeah. Members of the audience. Members of council. Okay, the second one deals with definitions. Really just two parts to this. Licensed medical professional means any of the following medical professionals: a physician assistant, a physician authorized under Chapter 4731 of the Ohio Revised Code to practice medicine and surgery, osteopathic medicine and surgery, or podiatric medicine and surgery, and 3, a massage therapist licensed under Chapter 4731 of the Ohio Revised Code. Second part of this deals with sexual imposition. No person shall have sexual contact with another, to have sexual contact with the offender, or cause 2 or more other persons to have sexual contact with, and here's where the change is, when the offender knows that the sexual contact is offensive to the other person or one of the other persons, or is reckless in that regard. Again, this is to simply bring our code in alignment with the Ohio Revised Code. Mr. Mayor, audience, members of council. All right, the third part deals with definitions. And there are a bunch of these. You all have these. Clerk Walker was nice enough to provide these to us. But to give you some idea of the areas we're talking about, definitions for agricultural tractor, bicycle, crosswalk, expressway, intersection, highway, pedestrian, railroad, sign or signal, train, roadway, sidewalk, street or highway, traffic, traffic control device, traffic control signal, vehicles. And then we move to the second part, traffic signals, and talks about flashing red signal indication, transit vehicle signal indication. And then the third part is fleeing and eluding obedience to traffic officers. And the big change here is this change is except as provided Section 2921 of the Ohio Revised Code, a violation of subsection B of the section is no longer a misdemeanor, but a felony of the 4th degree. We've seen quite a bit of this in the news lately. And then finally, for OVI offenses, it adds oral fluid, a swab, to one of the methods what's the word I want to use? For conducting an OVI assessment, along with blood serum, plasma, breath, or urine. And that is essentially it. And again, these are all fairly technical in nature. These are all on the website if anybody would like to read them, but it simply brings, as we try to do every year, our code into alignment with the Ohio Revised Code, and we use Civic Plus to do this for us. It's quite an undertaking. Mr. Mayor, any comments?
This is just some housekeeping.
Okay, thank you. Members of the audience? Okay, that, Mr. President, that concludes planning and development, and this certainly will be something that we need to take care of by the end of the year.
Thank you, Member Smike. We now move on to Committee of the Whole. So I invite all council members back to the dais. And we have one item on our Committee of the Whole agenda this evening, and that is the income tax levy proposed for the 2026 May primary. If the conversations this evening about our general fund haven't alerted you to the issue of the general fund balance and the ability to shore up these funds, that is the intention of asking the voters to consider a income tax levy in the 2026 May primary. Mayor or Treasurer Thomas, would you like to speak to this?
I can begin. As you recall, the ballot initiative that did not pass was requesting a 0.3% income tax increase. We have modified this levy to where it would be 0.2%, which is similar to the income tax increase of 2016. If you think about it, we already know how far with inflationary pressures, with healthcare costs, with expenses that we incur with road paving and everything else that, everything is going up when it comes to costs in comparison to revenue coming in. If we use the 2016 as the kind of benchmark, if you will, for how long of a period of time that keeps the city in good standing moving forward. And when I say good standing, I'm talking about everything from bond ratings to just keeping services going that everyone has come to expect of the city of Athens. It gives us about a 10-year period of time to where, again, I'm asking council to see fit to let the citizens vote in 2026 on an income tax increase. I'll let the treasurer get into a little more detail because he has been doing his due diligence and looking at revenue projections as well as where we're sitting right now at this point in time. So I'll pause there and kick this over to Treasurer Thomas.
Sure.
Treasurer Thomas.
Basically, when we talked about this last year, we gave you all the numbers that we could. I took the time to just look and see, what the question on everybody's mind is going to be, what is 0.2? What does that equal? What's that get us? So, the smart thing to do is just go back to the numbers that we know. You look at your 2024 numbers. What was the income tax? What did it bring in? And then make that comparison. If you did a 0.2 increase, and let's just say everything remains standard, what we did in 24, let's say we did the same thing, coming up, in coming years, you could bring in about another $1.8 million in income tax. Now, what's important to remember though is our good old income tax sheet here of how we break everything down, right? Where all the money goes. That's the important part. If you remember in previous discussions when we've had this, when we do bring in our income tax, this doesn't all just go to the general fund. The first thing we have to do is we have to take care of our bonds. We have a swimming pool bond. We have a fire station bond. We designate a certain percentage that goes straight to street rehab. We have a certain percentage that goes straight to the community center. These happen, that comes right off the top. So if you take that 1.8, let's just say we could bring in another $1.8 million. After you take all those things out of there, you're left with 1.5. You know, it's going to take about $300,000 out of there. After that, we have more ways that we divide up the money, right? This tax mix that we keep talking about that we can make changes to. If we remember, our medical fund gets 2%. The transportation assist fund gets 1%. Capital improvements gets 2%. Rec gets 8%. Streets get 14.5%. That leaves 72.5% of this 1.5 goes to the general fund, which would be a little over $1 million. So again, that's what we're looking at is bringing in, you know, close to $1 million in general fund revenue. And again, what's important, the mayor's brought this up in previous discussions, this isn't money that's going to drop into the door day one of 2027, right? If we vote on this in 26, we see nothing from it. We don't see anything. It's not like on January 1st of 27, somebody drops $1 million in our lap. It actually, we don't see the entire thing until December 31st of 27. So we're talking about, we have another 2 full years pretty much that we have to get through on the money that we have. So if we don't start this process, I think I mentioned this before, responsible government is thinking ahead. Responsible government is looking down the road. If we don't bring this forward to you guys, and again, whether people vote on it or not, that's up to the taxpayers and the voters. But our responsibility is to come to you and say, we look at the numbers, we see the trends, and we need to start this now, because if we don't, we just get further and further behind. So that's why we're bringing it to you now. You know, the mayor and I have had a lot of discussions about what we all have, the auditor, all of us have, and just determined, you know, we better do that. The other thing to make note of is, again, we did bring down the rate. We talked 3% before. We listened to the voters. I think we had great discussions, you know, before. We listened to our voters. We listened to council. We listened to everybody. The current budget that's being passed, I think we've shown we're trying to tighten the belt in every way that we can. You know, personnel costs, medical costs are going up, but our budget is staying relatively low compared to previous years. If you look at increases that have happened between 22, 23, 23, 24, the increases that we're looking at between 25 and 26 are much lower than they've been in the past. So the administration, I think, would definitely make the case that we've listened, we've heard every side of it, but we're still coming back with sort of our compromise, that we still think this is something that we need to talk about, and, you know, let council decide if you want to put it on the ballot, and then let the voters decide, you know, if it's something they want to support.
Thank you, Member Thomas. We now turn to the community. Would anyone from the public like to speak to the agenda item? And so now we turn to council.
Oh, maybe.
Okay. Yep.
Oh, no.
No?
Position change.
Mr. Delatch,
Okay.
would you like to? Please.
I'm Rob Delich, live here on Morris Avenue in the city of Athens. I guess my one piece of advice is that I think the city needs to make a good case for this, for it to pass. I don't think that there was enough detail. I mean, we just heard more detail than I remember last time. That was getting into some good information, exactly where the money is going, what's it going to do, why do we need it. We need to make those cases, or else it's probably not going to pass again. Last time the county tried to get a sales tax increase, basically the money was going to the general fund. That's all they said. And it wasn't a good enough argument for that to pass, and it didn't pass. So they lost out on the last time they tried to increase sales tax again because they did not make a good case. So I think that's my advice, is to make sure the city makes a good case for exactly what this is going to fund, and the dollars, even like an estimate like we just heard, and what putting money in the general fund does as well, and making sure it's clear, or else this will not probably pass again. So my advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the community? Okay, council? Member Swank?
In, what's today? Monday. In yesterday's paper, there was an interesting article about school levies in the state of Ohio. And in this last election last Tuesday, only 1 in 3 new levies passed. Renewals passed, bond issues passed, but only 1 in 3 new levies passed. And this is a new levy. But there was a quote that I've clipped out of that article. It's real short, but it's what we're facing, what Treasurer Thomas said here so eloquently. And here's what it says, quote, a school board, and we could substitute city council for school board. A school board doesn't place the levy on the ballot lightly, said Tom Hosler, CEO of the Ohio Association of School Boards. Each question represents months of discussion about how to meet student needs. We could substitute citizen needs for student needs while respecting a community's ability to pay. When a levy is rejected, it isn't failure, it's feedback. It's feedback. And in my opinion, the proposal before us today has taken months of consideration and has taken into account the feedback of this community. Reducing it from 3.3% to 0.2% is a 33% reduction. It deals with the community's ability to pay. Our budget for next year, the general fund, is only a 1.2% increase. I'm of the age this time of year we get a letter in the mail that tells us what our Social Security increase is. And this year it's 2.8%, more than double that. So yes, I think we didn't have a failure. We received a lot of feedback. And I think Mr. DeLocke's absolutely right. We're going to have to be very specific this year in telling people what this money is going to go for. Not what we're going to have to take away potentially, but what it's going to go for. Not in general terms, but in specific terms. And at the end of the day, if this council votes 7-0 to put it on the ballot, 4-3 to put it on the ballot, it is ultimately the decision of the citizens of Athens to make that decision. Now, it just so happens this year, they're going to be voting on a holiday because May the 5th is Cinco de Mayo.
Other council members? Yes, Member Clodfelter.
With all due respect, I would just like to suggest, sort of along the lines of Mr. Delich, that if this is to pass this year, I think it seems to me that the city administration may have to do a lot more marketing, if you will. Really put it out there in more ways than maybe city council meetings and the mayor's address. And really try to reach the public, because without a good case that people actually know about, I don't think it's going to pass.
Member Spielness.
If I remember correctly, there was a discussion about that the city is not, any city is not allowed to market it, if you will. That was what I heard last year when we had this conversation, that you could provide information, but you couldn't market it.
Mayor?
What is marketing? I mean, are we talking campaign for it?
Advocate, you know.
You
yeah.
absolutely can. You are an elected official. You have the ability.
I don't mean me, I mean you.
I mean you as well.
Well,
You're part of the government.
So here's the thing, and I appreciate the comments I'm listening to up and down the dais. I truly do. Last year when we moved this forward, I reached out to council and anyone on council who would like to join me in any of the town hall meetings that we hosted to engage with the public about the ballot initiative that was on the May ballot last year. I believe I had one individual join me. I will also say that for other ballot initiatives historically that I have been involved in, to include the 2015-2016 ballot initiative, there were others on council who supported and would attend forums, levy forums, to also express their support of said resolution or initiative going forward. You absolutely, as an elected official, can sit there and advocate for something. And of course, you can also, sadly, if you choose to, advocate against something if that's what you're interested in doing. But us as elected officials, we're elected by the people, and so therefore we do have that ability to. The treasurer has that ability, the auditor has that ability, the law director can do it if the law director chose to. I'm saying all this in that I appreciate the where would the money go. I'll flip the script just a little bit. It will keep the city sustainable moving forward, because the path that we're currently on when it comes to revenue in versus expenses going out, they're not in parity with each other. They just are not. To the point that the treasurer made earlier is so spot on. It is the thing that I look at all the time, and that is, if any levy passes, it's not like the floodgates open up and all of a sudden there's all kinds of money that's flowing into the city's coffers. That is not true. That is nowhere near reality. It takes a good year after something goes into effect. So if this were to pass in May, I'm hopeful that it will. I'm hopeful that council allows for the ballot initiative to get on the ballot on the May and let the people vote for it. But if it passes in May, there isn't going to be revenue collection happening until 2027. 2027, we're not going to see what the full impact is, as the treasurer indicated, until, really the major income tax collections, and that spans across the year. Big one in big one in April, and another one that we see in the October timeframe. But it isn't until the end of that year where we can really then start planning, okay, here's how things are going to flow moving forward in time. But at the end of the day, and we're going to talk a little bit about this later on, we have an executive session about collective bargaining. We have 4 unions in the city of Athens, and we have our non-union employees. Our major expense is personnel. It's to keep the fire department fully staffed, it's to keep the police department fully staffed, or staffed, as best we can, is to keep the street department staffed, engineering and public works, the rec department, everybody across the board. And I share that with you because we already have, we have 4 existing contracts with our 4 collective bargaining units. Those are 3-year contracts. The one that we're working on now will be renewed in the future. So we are also looking very closely, are we going to have the revenue to make sure we honor our contract that we have with the unions? And then, the thing that I watch very closely is when the unions are getting pay increases with the negotiation that occurred with collective bargaining. I, in turn, have to look at our non-union personnel, and unfortunately, they always tend to be lagging behind in terms of the percentage of increases that they get. That's not fair. But I'm left oftentimes with little choice because of the revenue that we do have coming in. As the mayor, I have to make decisions on things like that. Not to mention, and I'm glad, Councilmember Swank, that you brought this up. We have been so diligent this year, much like we are in other years, but this one in particular, because of the feedback that we heard, in that the budget that I put forward to you is shaved down as close as we can make this thing. Director Stone and I sit there with every department head, and we go through item by item by item, and looking and making tweaks and adjustments, even with what is brought to us by the Director of Engineering and Public Works, or the Director of Arts, Parks and Recreation, or the Director of Name a Place. And we go through and literally scrutinize every single thing and go, you know, really, do you really think you're going to need that amount of money that you have put into X, whatever X is? And we make adjustments to that. And so I think, you know, one of the big reasons we're having to do that this year, but we do it every year, we scrutinize what's coming at us, but the extra scrutiny that is happening now to all the departments in the city of Athens is based upon what we know the treasurer has shared, what the auditor has shared, and that is the revenue coming in is, if you look at the long game, it's not, when I say long game, when you look out a year in advance, a year ahead, or a year and a half ahead, or 2 years ahead, it's not keeping pace.
Thank you, Mayor. Member Swank.
Just add a couple things. Really, we don't see all that income tax revenue until either April 15th or April 30th of 2028 because of those who pay the estimated taxes. But a little bit of clarity back to this campaigning thing. I think there's a lot of confusion sometimes between an elected official and what he or she can do and what an employee can do. For example, the mayor could go out and campaign. Andy Stone couldn't on work time. Secondly, Treasurer Thomas can't go down and on that $1 million copy machine he has in his office use city supplies and electricity and paper and all that to produce campaign material. I'm being facetious. You don't have that. But the point is, you cannot use city resources to campaign. Elected officials, no problem. But those who are on the payroll can't do it on company time, and none of us, whether it's an elected official or an employee, can use city resources to campaign for the issue. But it would not hurt to, I think, have the law director give us the latest, greatest on that, because from time to time, as we all know, election rules and laws do change, and this is an election. It's a levy, but it is an election. So just wanted to point those two things out in terms of what we can and can't do and how much money we can and can't spend.
Thank you, Member Swank. Member Cloudfelter.
One thing that might be helpful, and maybe this would be largely you, Mr. Treasurer, is I know that the state has really reduced its funding to Athens and has made some decisions that have really cost us revenue. If that could perhaps be detailed, maybe in a letter to the editor of the newspaper or something, but somehow to make that part of the case. I don't know that everybody understands how much the municipal budget has been hurt by state decisions, and I think people would be open to taking that into account, probably, or at least a lot of people would.
Absolutely. That's what we've been talking about. Is this go around? Is we have discussed that what we need to do, the administration, us, we need to prepare ourselves with facts, so that way when people come to us, we have facts. But we need to prepare all of you with facts as well too. I'm not saying that everybody here should be campaigning for or against, but I'm saying that every person sitting in this room should know every fact that we give you, so that when you do get emails and when you do get phone calls, you are giving factual information back. Not I'm not real sure, we'll have to look. I don't know, I think about that, I think this, or I think no. We need facts, so that every citizen that comes to you hears the same thing, and we come to them with facts. And that's our job. We can prepare that for you. Just like you say, facts as to what the state is not giving us anymore, what we used to get. Facts, we're not getting the marijuana money that we were supposed to get. Fact, right? Certain facts that we can have and arm you with, so when you're approached by somebody, you know exactly what you're talking about. Facts so that everybody, and guess what? You're all getting homework from me. Everybody understands this tax mix. And I mean, you understand it like the back of your hand, so that when somebody says, well, where's this money going to? This much goes to here, this much goes to here, this much goes to here. We have a pool bond, we have a swimming pool bond. You're going to need to be able to repeat that over and over and over. So that way it's facts, so that people don't just say, well, you're taking your money. When we talk about the general fund, if Director Stone was here, he's probably got a laundry list of things that he could break down that $1 million in the general fund probably right now as to if some's going to go this. It's how much is going to support fire, how much is going to support police. He's into more facts that we can have for everybody. But again, it's going to be incumbent upon all of us if we want to see this pass. And again, once we give you the facts, that's for everybody to decide on their own. Am I for this or am I against this? How do I want to approach it? But at least so when somebody comes to you, you can say, I don't know how I feel about it, but here's the facts. And then let these people decide on their own, if that makes sense. And this time around, I think we can do a much better job of that.
Thank you, Treasurer. Yes, Member McCary.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments from the mayor and the treasurer, particularly the emphasis on the importance of providing facts. I don't recall fully if we did a city-based website just for the income tax proposed increase last time, but I'm curious to Member Swank's suggestion about having the law director clarify for us what we can and cannot do. I do think that finding ways to speak to citizens about this issue at the level of comprehension that matches their engagement with council issues will be helpful. And I don't know that when we talk to them about bonds and the level of detail that we're expected to understand, that it always, I essentially think that they want to know how exactly this is going to impact them on a daily basis, or the services that they see or they won't see or have received in the same ways. And I'm wondering what body or group of citizens would potentially be. We can certainly remind folks that they can write to their elected officials to share questions or concerns in ways that they would find it helpful to receive that information. But I'm wondering if there has ever been the use of any kind of advisory group or focus group to really help us speak the language or communicate the information in ways that they would appreciate. And I guess I'm thinking of that as a issue for both our council to consider and the administration.
Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember McCary. And I'm understanding where you're coming from with that, with your comments. And I'm just reflecting personally. I was one of the individuals who really took a lead when we had, if you recall, back in 2018, the 0.2 cents per kilowatt hour added to your electric bill for our carbon fee for the city of Athens. I certainly worked with Sustainable Ohio, at the time it was Southeast Ohio Public Energy Council, to understand and get the facts together as to what this is going to cost the citizen who decides to do this, and what are the benefits in reducing our carbon emissions. I also, pretty much led the campaign for the 2016 income tax increase. Also led the charge. When I say led, I mean I was, along with some council members, was the point when it was the recreation levy for the new swimming pool. The other one most recently was to replace the fire station headquarters. Again, the safety services levy. To me, it's not that difficult to work with the treasurer and the auditor to armor and to be that spokesperson to get it out there. But what I'm saying to all of you is it's one thing to be an N of 1 versus another thing to be an N of 9 or 10 or 11 if you count the auditor and the treasurer, to be the spokesperson for the need of something of this nature. When I reflect back on the earlier levies, there was a team of us that worked, and we would have the League of Women Voters put on a levy forum to where there's a panel sitting there of council members, the mayor, the auditor, and we would sit there and speak to that. So I'm truly listening to what you were saying and thinking that there are, we can have other entities, kind of help weave things along with what we already know, and to be more succinct about how that's moving forward in time and what that's going to look like. And again, demonstrating the true need. And in my opinion, that's not that difficult to do. Because at the end of the day, on the path that we're moving forward with, if I look in the future, services that people are expecting and know are there now, there's going to have to be some shifts in the future if we continue on this path with the revenue in versus expensive out. And there's only so much I can squeeze out of a rock.
Yes, Member Spielnitz.
Yeah, that sounds all promising. Another thing I just wanted to suggest is that communities often have public hearings with their budgets. And if we have a public hearing with our budget to show people where we're at and the need for additional funding, I think that would show transparency and interest and demonstrate the need.
In some ways, we do that. Every time I have to come to council and ask for an appropriation of funding for the street department or for Arts, Parks and Recreation or something, that's what you all, you know this. Council, you hold the financial purse strings for the city of Athens. You give me the authority to if approved, to increase appropriations for something that we know that is needed within the city of Athens. There's a level of transparency that takes place right in front of this body, and with this body, with the council meetings that take place. You know, anybody can request at any point in time the year-to-dates, the month-to-dates, all those financial things that are put out by the auditor's office that we all receive, to include, you know, our credit card transactions. I mean, those are all, at the end of the day, public record that someone can ask for. You know, you vote to approve the credit card transactions that take place, you know, once every month, once every whatever it is. I hear and I respect what you're saying, but I think that you had the budget conversation when we rolled the budget, you know, handed the budget off to city council to discuss.
Still coming.
Still coming. Yeah. Still coming.
I'm changing his figures 3 times.
Whole public record. Here is, you know, what we anticipate our needs to be looking forward in time into 2026. Much like we have done every year. Council by council, mayor by mayor.
Member McCary?
Thank you. I believe I understand council's timeline in terms of voting on this to be on the ballot, needing to happen before the end of this calendar year. But I'm hoping the mayor might offer a few preliminary comments on the timeline you might have in mind for when we would ideally begin serious public engagement outreach with anything like forums, or, for instance, would you like us to, by the end of January, have held our first, but be it an open forum or a public forum or something with the League of Women Voters, or would you like to see that happen in February or March?
I'm always open to having conversations with anybody in the city of Athens who wants to ask me about these things. I think, again, and we've historically been pretty strategic about, you know, when you have forums for levies and whatnot, and you really want to think about the placement of having the League of Women Voters working with you, you know, because they will host levy forums, or at least town halls to where you can have a good, solid process for engagement and having the press there. But you typically want to do that when you're about a month, or about 2 months, maybe 2.5 months out from when the citizens will be going to the polls. You certainly want to do it before early voting starts, you know, so I would say that that's the time frame, but that's not to say that we can't be talking about it as soon as we get into January, predicated upon council seeing to have this put on the ballot, because that's the first step. Council authorizes this going to the Board of Elections and to get it on the ballot. Again, in terms of the language, the only thing I see really changing in that language is the 0.3 to 0.2, changing it, drawing it down by 0.1%. I want to share something that the treasurer mentioned on the front end, just real quick. I know that, I mean, we could talk about this all night, but I don't know that council really wants to. Is that the treasurer mentioned the 1.95 and the allocations of the 1.95, and just so that there's more clarity, if nothing else, to the listening audience, if council already recognizes this, is that the general revenue coming in is 1.75. Then there's the other, you know, 2 tenths that are for the fire station levy, or the safety levy, the pool levy, the other levies are all part of that income tax that the individual in the city, all the citizens in Athens, everyone who works in the city of Athens is paying as part of that 1.95, which is where we are right now.
Member Swank?
Just real quick to Member McCary's thing. We have to have this filed by February 4th, 90 days before the election. So really to be kosher, yes, we can talk about it, but to do anything official prior to it being certified by the Board of Election would be kind of getting the cart before the horse.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's 90 days for local issues.
Great.
And I would just add to that when you're talking about timeline, again, let us close out 25 also. Let us get done with 2025. Let us close those books, because now when I'm talking about facts, now I have facts. We have real facts from 25. This is still the beginning of November. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 8 weeks, right? So again, get this passed, give us a month or so to get our facts together, and then we can start talking about exactly where we are, what our needs are, and where we're going.
Other members of council? Member Wood?
I think, we're all on board with putting it on. I just want to add an addendum, so long as Josh can't give homework. Because if Josh can give homework, Alan's going to try and give homework every week. We all know, nobody wants that.
Pencil and paper, blue books. Well, that'll be the homework.
Member Clodfelter?
I'm just curious, with the timeline in mind that Member Swank shared of, not being able to even do anything basically till February 4th, is there a rush to approve this to be on the ballot right now?
Yeah, we'd have to start over at square one if we don't pass it now, because it'll be a new council. And we'd only have 2 business meetings. We'd have to suspend the rules.
Correct, Member Clodfelter. We've been
Because
looking
it
very
will-
carefully at the calendar for this initiative, and it is what needs to happen now.
So it is a 3 reading thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, all right. That wasn't clear.
Other comments or questions from council members? Okay, that completes Committee of the Whole. We now move on to a special general session of council. And our first order of business is to establish quorum. All members are present this evening, and we have quorum. And then the next item of business is an ordinance for first reading. Ordinance 127-25 is an ordinance amending the 2025 appropriation ordinance 115-24 and authorizing an interfund transfer, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. We touched on this about an hour and a half ago. Allow me to read the ordinance. Let me get one thing clear. Are we going to have to suspend the rules for this and pass it tonight?
Yes.
Okay, it's good to have that clear. So the first thing I want to do is make a motion that we suspend the rules for ordinance 127-25.
Second.
Reason for the suspension is we're under a severe timeline that's got to get done now. So I'd like to make a motion that we, did I make a motion?
Already did, yeah.
Already did, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting tired.
It's okay, we have a motion on the floor
Yeah,
to
let's-
suspend the rules for ordinance 127-25. Any comments or questions on this motion to suspend? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The rules are suspended, Member Reisner.
Thank you. Then moving on, Section 1, the 2025 Appropriation Ordinance 115-25. It's hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriate balance the sum of $750,000 General Fund 101, Transaction Code 600 for transfer and increasing the total appropriations by said amount. Section 2, the auditor is hereby authorized to make the following interfund transfer from General Fund 101 to Medical Fund 866, the amount $750,000. Section 3, the 2025 Appropriation Ordinance 115-24 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the sum of $750,000 to Medical Fund 866, Transaction Code 300 to cover medical expenses and increase the total appropriation by said amount. I make a motion that we adopt 127-25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt 127-25. Are there any comments or questions from council? Yes, Member Clodfelter.
I'm a little uncomfortable voting on this if we don't know what the implications are going to be for the general fund and the city's overall commitments for 2025. I mean, if we do this, is it possible we aren't going to be able to pay people's salaries?
No.
Are we not going to be able to do the Imagination Library that we just committed to? Are there going to be specific commitments that we have done ordinances about that are like law now that we're not going to be able to fulfill if we do this? And I guess I'm addressing this to the treasurer.
No, I don't believe so. The auditor has not made any mention of that in the discussions that we had leading up to this, so, no.
Mayor, you want to address that?
Just, I have to address the question about payroll. I mean, we have budgeted for everybody in the staffing ordinance is always fully budgeted. And so there's never an issue for that. So there will be no impacts. And one of the things I was kind of hoping maybe someone on council was going to ask, so I will say it. I will certainly keep council informed and report to you, again, as we go through and look at the proprietary funds and drawing out the appropriate share from those budgets to put back into the general fund again anyway. So I will commit to that to council, to where when we look at the numbers and we have the auditor look at the numbers and where we're going to be able to pull from those proprietary funds, I will let council know.
Member Thomas, do you have a comment?
Mayor got it.
Okay, great. Any other comments or questions from council? Anything to add from, yes, Treasurer?
Sorry, I drifted just slightly. Was there read that $1,000 for the transportation fund in there as well?
Yes.
And the 2,500, or 25,000, sorry. I just missed that, thanks.
No, the $1,000 is not in this ordinance.
Not the one that I read.
It's in this order.
I'm reading the one off the web.
Yeah, I have a different copy.
Oh, I have a different copy too.
Yeah, we just need to set.
Oh, great, we all have different
So,
copies.
Member Reisner, you want to read that one?
If
Thank you, Member Treasurer Thomas.
you're sure this is the latest update?
Yes.
Okay. You heard him say that.
Yep.
Well, I'll read the part that's missing. $1,000 to Transportation Fund 214, TC 600 for public transit ticket refunds. Oh, yeah, that one. And, oh, yeah, the parking garage. $25,000 Parking Garage Fund 730, Transaction Code 300 for elevator repair. That's your thing. Credit card fees and year-end electric costs, and increase the total appropriations by a set amount, so on and so forth. There. It's been read.
It is my opinion that we should go back to a question of suspension of the rules, since these other items were not read the first time that this ordinance was read. Member Reisner?
Okay, let's just erase the board there. There, that didn't happen. I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules for 127-25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules with 127-25 being fully read. Any comments or questions on the suspension? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The rules are suspended. Member Reisner?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt 127-25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt 127-25. Any comments or questions on this adoption? Member Swank?
So in total, we're talking about $776,000, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of approving 127-25 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, what are we approving? I did not understand. What is on the table?
This is the full ordinance. It's the $750,000 plus the $25,000 for the parking garage, plus the $1,000 for the transportation refund for HAPCAP. Athens Public Transit.
Okay, thank you. Could we re-vote, please, because I wasn't ready?
Sure. Are there, I'll just go back and say, would you like to comment on this at all again? Anyone else like to comment? Treasurer or the mayor like to comment? Anyone on the public?
Didn't we just
Yes,
vote?
please.
I'll just comment that keep in mind, the 750 is general fund, the 25,000 is out of the parking garage fund, that's not general fund money. You know, that we're appropriating, it's already there in the parking garage fund, we just need to appropriate it so that we can actually spend it. And the same thing with the 1,000, so just to clarify that this is all general fund money, that the 25 and the 1,000 come from different funds.
Thank you, Treasurer. Mary, please.
Mary Abel, Strathmore Boulevard. I just have a couple of thoughts that came to me on the medical portion that I don't think I heard discussed here. And under your policy, are dependents covered 100% and up until what particular age? And the other question is, if a spouse is employed at another business, does that person need to have insurance through that particular employment, or do they have the option of getting onto the city's insurance plan? I didn't hear that discussed, and I'm just curious as I sat back here and listened to the discussion. Thank you.
Those are great questions, and I'm happy if the mayor would like to respond to that.
Sure. Thank you for asking that question. I think that's pertinent to all of this conversation. Yes, to the children, that they are 100% covered. And then the other thing is that we do not require a spouse who has access to health care at their place of employment, if not employed by the city, but employed elsewhere. That is not a mandatory thing by the city of Athens at this point in time.
Excellent questions. Anything else from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting ordinance 127-25 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The ordinance is approved. Thank you. That completes our regular session. We are now going to move into an executive session on collective bargaining. May I have a motion to move into executive session with the members? Member Swank?
Mr. President, I move the council move into executive session to consider collective bargaining, including the treasurer and the mayor and the law director.
All those in favor will go roll call vote. Member Spielness?
Aye.
Reisner?
Aye.
Wood?
Aye.
Swank?
Yes.
McCary?
Aye.
Clodfelter?
Aye.
Thomas?
Aye.
We will.
No,
Is there a
there
second
wasn't.
on that? Is there a second on the motion to go to executive session?
Second.
You want me to go back and do roll call again?
That's fine.
Okay.
Let's do it again.
Right.
That's a great
Spielness?
Aye.
Reisner?
Aye.
Wood?
Aye.
Swank?
Yes.
McCary?
Aye.
Clodfelter?
Aye.
Thomas?
Yes.
Unanimous vote to move into executive session. We will have to close the door, but we will reopen the door at the end of our executive session for anyone who would like to come and ask any questions.
Have coffee and donuts.